You probably think you know how attractive you are, but here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people actually underestimate their own attractiveness. And no, I'm not just talking about physical looks. Attraction is a combination of subtle cues, unconscious signals, and psychological triggers that other people notice instantly, even when you don't. In fact, there's a good chance you've been giving off these signals without even realizing it. And if you recognize the signs I'm about to reveal, you might be a lot more attractive than you think. But here's the twist. Attractiveness isn't about being flawless or having model-like features. It's about the way you make other people feel, the energy you carry, and the little subconscious habits that influence how others perceive you. So let's dive into the first sign, one that's almost impossible to fake. People often remember you without a clear reason. Ever had someone say, "I don't know why, but I remember you," or "You seem familiar"? That's because your presence leaves a mental imprint. Psychologists call this the distinctiveness effect, when someone's personality, energy, or even micro-expressions are unique enough to stand out in the mind. Attractive people often trigger this because the brain sees them as rewarding to remember. Now, you might think, well, maybe they just recognize me from somewhere. But here's the thing. Even strangers you barely interacted with can sometimes recall you in surprising detail. Your smile, your voice, or even the way you laughed once in passing. And that's not coincidence. It's your subconscious charisma doing the work. The second sign is subtle but powerful. You notice people mirroring your movements or speech patterns without realizing it. This isn't random. It's rooted in something called the chameleon effect. Research shows that when someone is attracted to you, their brain unconsciously starts copying your gestures, posture, and even tone of voice. If you tilt your head, they might tilt theirs. If you take a sip of your drink, they'll do the same. This is a primal bonding mechanism, an ancient way of signaling connection and interest. So if you've noticed people subtly syncing with you, it's not just politeness, it's attraction in disguise. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The third sign is when people act nervous around you. Now I know what you're thinking. Shouldn't attraction make people confident? Not always. True attraction can trigger adrenaline, and adrenaline can make people fumble their words, play with their hair, adjust their clothes, or even avoid too much direct eye contact. If you've ever had someone suddenly become clumsy or overly careful in your presence, it might not be because they're awkward. It might be because they care a little too much about the impression they're making. And speaking of impressions, let's get into the fourth sign. Strangers tend to trust you faster than expected. Think about it. Has someone ever told you personal things within minutes of meeting you? Or perhaps they felt comfortable around you without knowing why. This is because attraction isn't just physical. It's tied to emotional safety. People are naturally drawn to those whose body language, facial expressions, and tone signal warmth and authenticity. In psychology, this is tied to the halo effect. When someone perceives you as attractive, they unconsciously assume you have other positive traits like kindness, honesty, and competence, which makes them open up more quickly. Now, before I reveal the next sign, let me just say this. If you're finding yourself nodding along and thinking, yeah, I've experienced some of this, you might be underestimating yourself in a big way. We tend to be our own harshest critics, so here's what I want you to do. If you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on the notifications, because the signs I'm about to share will completely change the way you see yourself, and you don't want to miss what's coming. All right, let's keep going. Sign number 5 is one that's almost always misread. People sometimes act competitive or try to one-up you, even when you're not competing. This might sound negative, but it's actually a form of respect and recognition. When someone perceives you as attractive, physically, socially, or even intellectually, it can trigger subtle competitiveness in them. It's not always about jealousy. Sometimes it's an unconscious drive to earn your attention or match your perceived value. This could be a friend telling a slightly exaggerated story right after you share something, or a colleague suddenly highlighting their achievements when you're in the room. It's human nature. Our brains push us to stand out to people we value, and attraction can spark that impulse. The sixth sign is one you might have experienced without connecting the dots. People seem to linger around you without a clear reason. You might notice coworkers just happening to walk by your desk more often, friends standing a little too close during conversations, or even strangers in public spaces finding ways to stay in your orbit. This isn't coincidence, it's called proximity attraction, and it's deeply rooted in evolutionary psychology. Our ancestors associated closeness with safety, bonding, and potential connection. So the desire to be near someone we find attractive is practically hardwired. If people subtly choose to be in your physical space more than is necessary, it's often because they're drawn to your presence in ways they may not even fully understand. And that brings us to the 7th sign for part 1 of this deep dive. Your opinions carry more weight than you expect. Have you noticed people asking for your advice, valuing your input, or even changing their mind after hearing your perspective? Attractive individuals often experience this because of a psychological phenomenon where perceived attractiveness boosts perceived intelligence and credibility. It's not always fair, but it's real. Studies have shown that we unconsciously trust and respect the ideas of people we find appealing. So if you've ever casually mentioned an opinion and noticed others nodding in agreement, even when you're not an expert on the topic, you might be benefiting from this bias. Here's the thing, attraction isn't about being perfect. It's about the unique mix of signals you send to the world, most of which you're probably unaware of. And while we've just scratched the surface here, these early signs already point to one reality. You might be underestimating your impact on people more than you realize. Now, here's where things get really interesting, because the next signs aren't just about how people act around you, but about the way your very presence changes the energy in a room, sometimes without you even opening your mouth. The 8th sign you're more attractive than you think is that people naturally adjust their appearance before interacting with you. This is one of those micro behaviors you only notice if you're really paying attention. Someone smoothing their hair, fixing their shirt, straightening their posture, or checking their reflection in their phone screen right before talking to you. This is a deep-rooted evolutionary response. When we're around someone we find appealing, our brain sends subtle signals to present ourselves in the best possible way. You might think, well, maybe they just do that normally, but here's the giveaway. If you notice they weren't fixing themselves up until you entered the space, that's not random. It's attraction in action. The 9th sign is that your sense of humor lands more often than you expect. Humor is a huge component of attraction because laughter releases dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical, which strengthens social bonds. Now sure, maybe you're genuinely funny, but attraction can make even your average jokes hit harder. This is because when people like you, they're more invested in rewarding your behavior, and laughing is one way to do that. If you've noticed that people seem to laugh a little harder, smile a little wider, or encourage you to keep talking even when you're not delivering your best material, that's a clue they're drawn to you. The 10th sign is more subtle. People remember small details about you that you never expected them to care about. Maybe someone recalls your coffee order from months ago, or they bring up that random story you told once at a party. This happens because when we're attracted to someone, our brain unconsciously tags information about them as important, making it easier to recall later. It's almost like your personal details get bookmarked in their mind, so if you've ever been surprised by how much someone remembers about you, even when you didn't think you made a big impression, it could be because you did. The 11th sign is a fascinating one. You notice people adopting your preferences over time. This could be music, style, slang, or even certain opinions you've expressed. In social psychology, this is called preference alignment, and it's another unconscious bonding mechanism. When someone likes you, they often start integrating aspects of your identity into theirs as a way of strengthening the connection. So if your friends suddenly start wearing similar colors to you, listening to the artists you love, or quoting phrases you use, that's not a coincidence. It's subtle attraction at work. The 12th sign might surprise you. People show protective or supportive behavior around you, even if you're perfectly capable of handling yourself. This could mean defending you in a conversation, stepping in when they think someone is being rude, or offering to help you with small tasks you didn't ask for help with. From a psychological standpoint, this stems from a primal instinct to care for those we're drawn to. Even if they'd never admit it outright, their actions reveal a subconscious desire to be seen as dependable in your eyes. The 13th sign you're more attractive than you think is that people sometimes imitate your emotional state. If you're upbeat, they seem energized. If you're calm, they settle down too. This emotional mirroring is deeply connected to empathy, but when attraction is involved, it becomes more intense. The brain uses mirror neurons to sync with people we like as a way of deepening rapport. It's why being around certain people can completely shift our mood, And if you're noticing this effect in others, it's a big sign your presence holds more influence than you give yourself credit for. The 14th sign is one you've probably experienced but overlooked. People try to find excuses to touch you, even in small, socially acceptable ways. This could be a pat on the back, a light touch on the arm during conversation, or brushing something off your shoulder. Humans are wired for physical connection, and even fleeting touches can create oxytocin release, which increases bonding and attraction. The key here is subtlety. If these touches feel casual but happen more often than with others, it's likely because they're drawn to you on a deeper level. The 15th sign, and one of the most telling, is that people often try to elongate interactions with you. Maybe they keep asking follow-up questions, even when the conversation could naturally end. Or they linger at the door when you're saying goodbye. Sometimes they'll even accidentally forget something, just so they have a reason to come back and see you again. Time is our most valuable resource, and when someone chooses to give you more of it, especially without an obvious reason, it's a strong indicator of attraction. Now, the reason these signs matter so much is because we live in a world where most people are walking around completely unaware of the signals they're sending and receiving. You might think you're just blending into the background, but the reality is you could be affecting people's emotions and behavior every single day without realizing it. And here's the crazy part. These signals often bypass conscious awareness. The person might not even be able to explain why they act differently around you, because the brain's attraction system operates in the subconscious. It's not about deciding, I like this person. It's about feeling it, instantly, before they can even rationalize why. This is why understanding these signs can change the way you see yourself. You start realizing that attraction is multi-layered. It's not just about your appearance today, but about your patterns of interaction, your energy, and the emotional experience you create for others. And while it's easy to focus on flaws or compare yourself to others, the truth is, someone out there is picking up on these subtle cues you don't even know you're giving off. And in part 3, we're going to go even deeper, not just into the signs, but into how to actually amplify them intentionally, without being fake or manipulative. Because once you understand the science and psychology behind attraction, you can start showing up in a way that naturally draws people in without feeling like you're trying too hard. So let's bring this home, because the final signs aren't just about recognizing attraction. They're about understanding the deeper impact you have on people, even when you're not trying. The 16th sign you're more attractive than you think is that people value your presence in group settings without you having to fight for attention. You might notice conversations subtly shift toward you, people glance in your direction to gauge your reaction, or others seem more engaged when you're actively involved. This isn't just good social skills, it's a sign you're perceived as a high-value presence. The 17th sign is that people remember your scent, even when you're not wearing a strong fragrance. Scent is one of the most powerful triggers for memory and emotion, and when someone is attracted to you, their brain literally tags your natural scent as comforting or appealing. This is why they might say things like, "You smell nice," even when you haven't sprayed anything special. It's their perception of you that enhances the experience. The 18th sign is that your absence is noticed more than you realize. Maybe someone points out when you miss a meeting, or friends comment that it's not the same without you. Humans are creatures of habit, and when we form a positive emotional association with someone, we feel their absence more sharply. If people seem to notice your absence in ways that feel disproportionate, it's because your presence has an emotional weight. The 19th sign, one of the strongest, is when people open up about wanting to spend more one-on-one time with you. This could be framed as grabbing coffee, taking a walk, or just hanging out. But the motivation is always the same. Attraction thrives in closer, more personal spaces. And the final sign, the 20th, isn't about other people at all. It's about you. If you've ever been surprised when someone admits they found you attractive, or if you've experienced moments where your self-image didn't match how others see you, that's a huge sign you're underestimating yourself. We tend to over-focus on flaws and downplay strengths, which means the version of yourself you carry in your head is often far less magnetic than the one people actually experience in real life. And here's the mindset shift I want you to walk away with. Attraction isn't just about luck or genetics. It's a skill, an energy, and a pattern of behavior that can be cultivated. The more you focus on showing up as your authentic self, treating people with warmth, and carrying yourself with quiet confidence, the more these signs will start showing up everywhere you go. You'll stop thinking, "Am I attractive?" and start realizing, "I've been attractive all along. People just see it before I do." And that's the real secret. When you begin to own your presence without overthinking or forcing it, you stop chasing validation and start becoming the person others naturally gravitate toward. That's when attraction stops being something you wonder about and starts being something you simply embody effortlessly.